Hey everyone, it's Mark. This is my recap for Pokémon Journeys episode 129, the Finals 1, Torrent. This was the 1214th episode of the Pokemon anime, and it's what we've all been waiting for, Ash versus Leon. There was so much going on in this episode, so let's break it all down. The episode starts in Slateport City of all places, where Go has arrived to join up with Project Mew. Horace is the first one to greet him when he steps off the boat, and they're quickly joined by Gary, who says that it's a shame that they got called on the same day of Ash's finals match. They head over to the Project Mew flying airship laboratory thing, where the rest of Project Mew is waiting for them. Go takes a second to stare out into the distance, wishing Ash the best. The scene transitions to the outside of Winden Stadium, where Ash is wishing Go all the best on his task. What great friends, right? Next, we see Ash sharing one last moment with his team before the match. They put their hands, paws, claws, fins, and leeks together, and they're all ready to go. Wait, hold on, what are Piplup and Eevee doing here? Yeah, so Dawn and Chloe decided to come watch the match in person. Not sure how they got access to Ash's dressing room, but whatever. It was a nice moment to see them back together. Meanwhile, Leon is trying to stay calm over in his room. We get the scene that we saw in the special preview last week, where Leon reminisces on his first battle ever, claiming that he feels the same way now as he did back then. With that, the match is about to begin, and Dawn has brought some of her cheerleading gear from back in the day. Elsewhere in the stadium, BAMZ are ready to stream the finals to all their loyal fans. I feel like there should be some kind of copyright laws against that, but anyways, they later decide that they can't stream this battle. They want to focus all their attention on cheering for Ash. How sweet. As the stadium announcer begins his pre-match introductions, we get a smash cut to different people watching the battle, starting with Iris watching from atop a tree outside Opelucid City, Lance and Dragonite watching from who knows where, and this group watching together from Professor Sycamore's lab. As the trainers make their way onto the field, their introductions are kept somewhat brief, with Ash just being called Alola's first champion and a very strong trainer. Yeah, we would have been here all day had we listed off Ash's entire trophy cabinet. They do recap how Ash made it to this point in the Masters tournament, first by defeating Steven and then by defeating Cynthia, who happens to be watching the battle alongside Diantha in their own private box inside the stadium. Leon's introduction is similarly brief, and while he makes his way into position, we see that Hop is going to be watching alongside Sonia from the stands, while Raihan is watching the battle from what I'm guessing is one of the Hammerlock Pokemon centers. Leon and Ash share a few words before the match, nothing too notable, just both trainers sharing how excited and fired up they are, as expected. We get a quick shot of the watch party back at Oak's lab. Wow, there's a lot of cameos, aren't there? Finally, it's time to start the battle. The referee comes in to announce the rules, and they're the same as the semifinals. I was so glad to see that both trainers are still only allowed one use of Dynamax Z moves or Mega Evolution. Hold on a second, why is this sentence cut off at the end? Please don't tell me, please don't. No, Leon, why do you want Ash to use all three? Ugh. I was so hoping this wouldn't happen, but here we are. Leon is so fired up that he wants to face Ash at his very best. It was pretty funny to see Dan, the referee, scrambling to communicate with upper management, but he announces that the powers that be have approved Leon's request, and Ash accepts these new rules. I hate this, but whatever, let's just keep it moving for now. Both trainers send out their first Pokemon, with Ash choosing Pikachu and Leon sending out his Cinderace, one of the Pokemon we haven't seen him use yet. Ash explains that he was always going to start with Pikachu, which Leon kind of laughs at, seeing that Ash paid no mind to tactics. Ash immediately calls for Thunderbolt, while Leon goes for Scorching Sands, an interesting move to see in a Cinderace. Just before Cinderace can launch the attack, its head starts to glow. Pikachu gets its Thunderbolt off just as it gets hit, and it lands directly on Cinderace, but it shakes it off without taking any damage. What? Ash is rattled from this, almost as rattled as I was when they cut to commercial break, only to replay the entire 35 seconds that just happened. Like, that's so much time spent replaying the same scene over again. Anyways, Leon, whose nose is looking very pointy, explains that Cinderace's ability is Libero, so whenever it uses a move, Cinderace changes its type to whatever move it is using. Ash realizes this is bad news, as now Cinderace is a ground type. He smartly recalls Pikachu, knowing that he can't do much against Cinderace right now. Leon is also going to switch his Pokemon and he brings out Inteleon while Ash sends Gengar into the battle. Ash says to himself that this is almost like he's battling Ghost Pokemon. I'm not sure Ghost Pokemon are this strong though. Gengar gets hit with a Snipe Shot while it launches a Shadow Ball, but Inteleon is fast enough to bat it down with its tail before it can take any damage. As always, Leon's movesets are on point, as Inteleon also knows Dark Balls. Gengar is able to dodge by diving into the ground using its ghost abilities though. Leon isn't fazed by this and calls for Aqua Jet, which Inteleon uses while standing in place, causing water to shoot out in all different directions. Dawn recognizes what's going on immediately. Leon is copying Ash's counter shield tactic, and yeah, it looks like Leon has got it pretty much spot on. I feel like Gengar still should have been able to dodge this fairly easily, but it ends up just getting hit by wave after wave, taking a little bit of damage each time. Ash eventually calls for Will-O-Wisp, and while the counter shield is able to block it, it does still create a huge cloud of steam, which is enough to throw Leon off. Ash takes this chance to switch Gengar out. Just kidding, let's get huge. Ash pulls out his first battle technique, choosing to Gigantamax his Gengar early on in the battle. We see Marnie and Piers watching on from Spikemouth, and this has got to be a familiar sight for Marnie. Leon calls for another Snipe Shot, and Hop's comment about Inteleon being able to dual wield made me laugh. Inteleon does its best to fight off a G-Max Terror, but ultimately it does get hit, which activates the additional effect of G-Max Terror, trapping Inteleon and making it unable to switch out. Leon readies another Dark Pulse, while Ash calls for Max Ooze. Inteleon tries to shake it off, but Ash isn't letting it get away that easy. Eventually though, Inteleon is able to fire its Dark Pulse, landing a direct hit on Gengar. That definitely did a ton of damage, but it also left Inteleon vulnerable, and it gets absolutely nailed by the last bit of Max Ooze. For some reason, the Gigantamax also clears, despite Gengar having only used 2 Max moves. They try to make up some excuse that maybe Dark Pulse was a critical hit or something. I don't know, that was stupid. Gengar is still standing though, but Inteleon isn't, giving Ash the first KO of the match. It's party time for all of Ash's supporters. They're all super happy to see Ash take the lead. It's always funny seeing Team Rocket unabashedly cheering for Ash, and meanwhile Alistair is fired up to see Gengar doing so well. Leon sends out his third Pokemon, Mr. Rime, which means that Leon has already sent out all 3 of the Pokemon that we hadn't seen in action yet prior to this match. Its first attack is Freeze Dry, which lands a hit on Gengar, but at a cost if Ash's dramatic reaction is anything to go by. Sure enough, Gengar's cursed body has disabled Freeze Dry. Super convenient that we've never seen Gengar activate its ability prior to this, although to be fair, Freeze Dry has an even lower chance of freezing its opponent, but that's what happens too, so advantage Leon. And even though Freeze Dry has already covered most of the battlefield in ice, Leon continues to set the stage by using Psychic Terrain, which is really bad for Ash because now Mr. Rime can just slide up to Gengar and hit a crazy powerful expanding force, which is supercharged thanks to the Psychic Terrain, and yeah, no shock, this immediately KOs Gengar. That means both trainers are down to 5 Pokemon remaining, and Ash has used up one of his 3 gimmicks. Pretty even start to the battle, and with that, the episode comes to an end before Ash even sends out his next Pokemon. Where do I even begin to discuss this episode? I definitely enjoyed it a lot, but it had its drawbacks. If I didn't make it obvious enough before, I really dislike the fact that Ash gets to use all 3 of his battle techniques in this match. And look, I get it, Ash went through all the work to obtain all 3 gimmicks. Leon could have done the same thing if he wanted to, right? So this is just Ash's reward for mastering all 3. Cool, I've acknowledged that, but it still doesn't make me feel any better about this decision. Like, it just comes off as unfair that Ash is able to use all 3 while Leon only has access to 1 use of Dynamax. This episode was a great example of why I feel this way, because Leon completely outclasses Ash at the beginning of the match, and in order to basically land any offense, Ash has to resort to Gigantamaxing his Gengar. This wasn't some big epic moment where Ash pulled out his Dynamax band. This was the only way that Ash could even damage Leon's Pokemon. Like, come on, that makes Ash seem so weak to me. Again, I have to check myself though. Like, in a few days, I'm gonna post my video ranking Ash's Unova Gym battles, and I'm gonna praise Ash versus Roxy, even though Ash had way more of an unfair advantage in that battle. But I liked it because Ash was able to overcome a really strong opponent. I guess that's basically the same thing we're seeing here. Ash is using all of his resources to match up with Leon, so I don't really know why this bugs me as much as it does. Maybe just because I was dreading the possibility of this happening for so long. Like, so many people had said, oh, maybe Ash will be able to use all 3 mechanics against Leon. And this entire time I've been saying, no, please don't do that, but here we are. Okay, like I said though, overall I enjoyed this episode a lot, so I don't want to make it sound like I hated it because I didn't. This was really good. In fact, let's just get to my rating. I'm giving this episode an 8 8 out of 10 rating. This episode was way more than just part 1 of Ash's battle against Leon. They spent like half the episode building up the tension and importance of this battle. I can't think of another battle that matches up to the magnitude of this one, what with all the notable characters we saw watching on. They really are making this battle feel special, even if they're just using subtle things like having returning characters on screen for a few seconds at a time. Those of you who have watched my videos for a while will know that I don't really care about the animation all that much. That's just not something I pay much attention to, but there were a few instances in this episode where I actually noticed that instead of reusing certain animations like they've done in the past, they actually changed things up a little bit, which just goes to show the extra attention that went into making this battle. And as for the actual match itself, I really like Leon's tactics. He was strategically sound throughout the entire episode, and I love that he led with Libero Cinderace. That's definitely something I would do, to be honest. I love battling with Libero Cinderace. My only other complaint, and I'm just nitpicking at this point, so don't take this too seriously, is that the anime was doing some strange things at the end of the episode. Like, why did Gengar's Gigantamax run out early? I don't even care if they tried to give an actual reason, I still think that was a dumb thing to have happen. Then, and I already talked about this in my recap section, how was this the first time ever that Cursed Body activated? Like, seriously, now is the first time that it activated? How convenient. I definitely feel like they were just trying to surprise us over and over again with these twists and turns. It felt like they were just shoehorning some of these things in though for the sake of the surprise. Like, I mean, come on, Cursed Body activates, but then Mr. Rhyme still just immediately knocks out Gengar. Like, what was the point? Okay, to be fair, maybe in the next episode, Mr. Rhyme will struggle a little bit without being able to use Freeze Dry, so I'll let that play out and not be too hard on it now. Speaking of the next episode, the preview showed us that, well, the battle is going to continue. Whenever it comes to the middle episode of one of these lengthy Pokemon battles, all I'm really looking for is some fun action as the match builds towards its climax. I would expect a few KOs from both sides in the next episode, and it looks like Ash will use his second gimmick, but I wonder if Mega Evolution is shockingly going to do pretty poorly in this battle, considering it already got its big starring role in the Cynthia match. I'm just excited to keep on watching. I think this battle got off to a good start, and I hope it just gets even better. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.